Good evening, you're watching World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Confirmation tonight from Donald Trump that America will not pull troops out of Poland. The US President delivering the promise just a few hours ago as he met with his Polish counterpart Karol Nawrocki in the Oval Office. More in just a moment. First, tonight's headlines. China rolls out the tanks in a major military parade in Beijing. Deals, deals, deals at Central Europe's largest defence fair. And conservative backlash over Poland's new health education classes. US President Donald Trump says America won't pull troops out of Poland and could add even more. Trump made the remarks as he sat down with newly appointed Polish President Karol Nawrocki at the White House, with the pair insisting relations between the two countries have never been stronger. The meeting follows days of infighting in Warsaw between the right-wing Nawrocki and centrist ruling coalition over coordinating Poland's foreign policy position. Piotr Miszczuk reports.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to have President Nawrocki with us of Poland.
Though President Trump could have polished up his pronunciation of Polish names, his first official encounter with Poland's President Karol Nawrocki looks very promising for Polish-American relations.
I think there's a great trust and a great, more than most countries, more than almost any countries. We have some in a category that's very special, and Poland is in that category.
It seemed like it was a mutual feeling.
Polish-American relations are very important, very strong.
Before Nawrocki's visit, Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz said that it is firm military promises that would make him consider Nawrocki's trip a success.
Ensuring the continued presence of US troops in Europe and Poland.
And Trump did pledge continued or even increased American military support and troop presence in Poland.
We never even thought in terms of removing soldiers from Poland. We do think about it with regard to other countries, but we would never know. We're with Poland all the way, and we will help Poland protect itself. If anything, we'll put more there if they want.
Just a day before Nawrocki's trip, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski met with his American counterpart Marco Rubio. Experts say that the two meetings happening in the span of a day bodes well for Poland.
I think it's important message that the Poles are united.
But the cohabitation is far from rosy, given that conservative President Nawrocki had refused to partner up with the Liberal government for the visit.
That's a real disappointment when you see President Nawrocki going to the White House without any MFA backing.
Now, if Nawrocki wants to dictate Poland's foreign policy towards the US, it seems like he's got some big shoes to fill when it comes to relations with Trump.
We just know each other as people, as two, I could say, friends.
He's done a fantastic job and he's my friend.
Nawrocki's first official visit to the White House is a first but promising step in forging a rapport with Trump. For TVP World, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
And Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has just responded on social media to President Trump's comments, saying on matters of security, deterring Putin and supporting Ukraine, the government, the president and the opposition speak with one voice. The European Union is one step closer to sealing its decades-long trade deal with Mercosur. Top officials in Brussels ratified the agreement on Wednesday before it heads to capitals across the bloc for consultation. In Poland, there's staunch opposition over agricultural concerns. But is the country standing alone? Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more.
After hours of backroom negotiations in the European Commission building in the Belgian capital, top Brussels brass finally ratified the EU-Mercosur trade deal. Now, the EU executive is spruiking this deal as the largest tariff-reducing pact in the history of the bloc. This would be squared up between the EU's 27 member states and Mercosur. This comprises of Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina and Brazil, despite the hype and the celebration that roughly 91% of EU exports into those Latin American countries will face lessened import levies over the next few decades. Not everyone is won over. The Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, reiterated on Wednesday his staunch opposition to the deal.
There's no one outside Poland who would want to block Mercosur at this point. We can't vote it down. Poland will oppose Mercosur because we want to truly ensure, or at least show and demonstrate, that we won't give up when it comes to the interests of Polish agricultural producers. But there are no partners to block it at the moment.
Tusk's warnings echo a lot of what we're hearing from the agricultural sector of late, that this deal would lead to a glut of cheap Latin American commodities being imported into the EU, particularly poultry and beef. But what we're hearing from the European Commission is that this new deal includes safeguards as well as a proposed 300 billion euros that could be used and allocated to farmers that lose out because of this political agreement. But TVP World in the Belgian capital asked the European Commissioner for Trade, Maroš Šefčovič, what message he has to Warsaw in light of its staunch opposition to this deal.
Because I know that Polish farmers are very competitive and they are very strong in exporting their goods. I'm from the neighboring country, so I know how many Polish products we have on our shelves, and I know that you can find them all over the world, so they are doing pretty well in exporting agri-food exports, and I'm sure that also with this deal they could do even better.
Šefčovič has already managed to win over the likes of France and Italy with this deal due to the details regarding special protections for that agricultural sector. This means that Poland will continue to go it alone if it so chooses, but a qualified majority is all that it takes for this agreement to hit the ground running. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
China has played host to the country's largest ever military parade as it marks the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. But with President Xi Jinping welcoming the likes of Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, the event visually rebuked the West. And as Anastasia Yanchenko reports, Donald Trump was quick to fire back.
From diplomacy to military might, Beijing staged its largest ever parade, marking 80 years since the end of World War II. China showcased new weapons with over 10,000 troops, 100 aircraft and hundreds of vehicles on display.
Humanity is again faced with a choice of peace or war, dialogue or confrontation.
Xi Jinping hosted more than 20 foreign leaders. Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader received particularly warm welcomes.
Because of the broader selection of guests at the parade, it's also a clear signal about China's ambition to reshape the existing world order.
The trio drew the spotlight to themselves, with numerous photos highlighting their unity against the US-led world order, experts note.
This is about an image of power, image of cooperation, deepening cooperation, image of alternative towards the West.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, US President Donald Trump, once considered a partner, was not invited to the event and has already accused the trio of conspiring against the United States.
The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America.
Among current European leaders, only Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić traveled to Beijing. Conspicuously absent from the parade was India's Prime Minister Modi, although he attended Monday's talks with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. Modi's approach to Xi hardened after India's deadly clash with Pakistan, to which China provided arms. China, the world's fourth largest arms exporter, supplies not only Pakistan, but as the Telegraph reports, has covertly sent Russia drone parts worth approximately 54 million euros, despite claiming neutrality.
Russian missiles that hit Ukraine have Chinese components in them. It's not as if that's the only source of components, but it's without a question something that Russia benefits from.
While Putin attended the parade in Beijing, Russia launched 500 drones and 24 missiles at Ukraine. For TVP World, I'm Anastasia Yanchenko.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has wrapped up a whistle-stop tour to Denmark, with Nordic and Baltic leaders reaffirming their unwavering support for the war-torn country. It comes ahead of a key European summit in Paris on Thursday. Gabriela Jelonek reports.
Volodymyr Zelensky has taken part in negotiations with the group of Nordic-Baltic 8 that includes Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway and Sweden, countries that have been consistently supporting Ukraine since the start of the full-scale Russian war. One of the key issues under discussion were Russian attacks on Ukraine and further assurances of the continued support from the Nordic countries.
We are ready to continuing our steadfast support for Ukraine. It means more weapons, more ammunition, and more sanctions on Russia. We are ready to pave the way for Ukrainian EU membership, and we are determined to rearm Europe.
Ukraine aims to secure at least $1 billion a month from its allies to purchase American-made weapons as it fights off Russia's ongoing invasion.
In August, we filled the Pearl program for American weapon, and it already has over $2 billion. The goal is to add around $1 billion each month. I think Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Latvia and Iceland, who are already in this program, and other partners. I also urged other partners from the Nordics and the Baltics to join this program.
However, no Polish officials were present at the meeting, even though Poland is a Baltic country and shares both land and sea borders with Russia. Officially, Poland did not join the coalition of countries claiming that they are ready to send troops to Ukraine as part of the post-war security guarantees. This is why Polish officials did not attend the meeting of Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders in Washington last month.
Poland plays a crucial role in supporting Ukraine, simply as a transit country for weapons, but also as a country of repair facilities, training facilities. Whether Poland is formally a member or not is really of secondary importance. The important thing is that the Polish government talks to the other governments here and that there's some coordination going on. That's what really counts.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has confirmed that this time he will attend the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing with Volodymyr Zelensky, set to take place in Paris on Thursday.
I will be in Paris tomorrow at the conference of the Coalition of the Willing, the countries that are helping Ukraine defend against Russian aggression.
The gathering of the Coalition of the Willing will feature officials from over 30, mainly European countries, alongside NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. However, according to French media, US President Donald Trump is not expected to take part in the conference. For TVP World, Gabriela Jelonek.
Securing the Baltic Sea and beefing up Ukraine's arms industries have been top of mind for officials at the Kielce Military Expo in southern Poland. Also on the agenda, the signing of arms deals worth more than €1 billion. Defence correspondent Zuzana Jurek is there.
The Baltic Sea is quickly becoming one of the key frontiers when it comes to testing the deterrence and defense capabilities of the NATO alliance, from using drones to patrol the sea from the air to expanding naval capabilities. And no country is more aware of it than Poland, which, despite the modernization efforts when it comes to its armed forces, has fallen significantly behind when it comes to naval capabilities. Now it is apparent that one of the key flagship projects, the Orca programs, might be coming to a closure. The program seeks to acquire new submarines for the Polish Navy, following the signing of an MOU on collaboration by the Polish Armaments Group and one of the key contractors which is currently bidding to supply submarines to Poland.
We are targeting the Orca program here in Poland, proposing our near future submarine, also said NFS. It is very important for us and for the success of the program. We do need a local industrial partner in order to develop a number of activities. So this memorandum with PGZ is a first step in that direction.
But this emphasis on collective efforts when it comes to deterrence, particularly for the allies, is not just when it comes to Poland. During the expo, coalition of the willing participants, including Denmark, have spoken about the need to strengthen Ukraine's industrial outputs in a bid to withstand Russia's full-scale aggression.
We think it's very important to build up the Ukrainian defense industry in order for them to be able to produce and produce themselves so that they can withstand the aggression from Russia.
And these collaborative efforts are meant to serve as a foundation for building a strong basis for defense and deterrence in Europe. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Poland's top diplomat is calling for the country to be admitted into the G20 as its economic power goes from strength to strength. The push comes in the same week that Warsaw joined the so-called $1 trillion club. Maciej Wilowski reports.
Poland's economy just hit a major milestone, a nominal GDP of $1 trillion. With the country's economic cloud rising, Polish officials are pushing for entry into the G20, one of the world's most prestigious economic clubs. Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski brought up the subject Tuesday in a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
I have been pushing for the United States to invite us to the G20 with their presidency next year. We have the right to do so not only as one of the 20 largest economies in the world, but also as a country which presents a political and intellectual argument. Because we are a country that has made a successful transformation from a planned economy to a free market economy, and we are an example for others to follow.
Since joining the European Union in 2004, Poland's per capita GDP has more than doubled, narrowing the country's prosperity gap with its EU peers. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also weighed in, saying Poland had joined the exclusive club of countries with $1 trillion GDP.
I know these are abstract statistics, so it's hard to even grasp a number like $1 trillion. But it's impressive. Only 20 out of 195 countries in the world belong to this exclusive $1 trillion club. And as I've said many times before, this is certainly not our last word on the matter.
Poland's entry into the G20 could happen as soon as 2026, when the United States is set to host next year's G20 summit. U.S. President Donald Trump, who on Wednesday hosted Polish President Karol Nawrocki in the White House, could back Poland's claim. The current composition of the G20 may not reflect the economic realities of 2025. Argentina and South Africa, two current members of the group, have economies significantly smaller than that of Poland, with nominal GDPs of $683 billion and $410 billion respectively, according to the IMF. Should Poland be part of the G20, and will it be difficult to get in?
I think it should, considering its, sensational economic development of the last 34 years. The people who decide about the G20 are the G20 countries. So it may become G21, but that will require some pretty smart Polish diplomacy in the 20 capitals.
Whether or not Poland finds itself in the G20 in the not-too-distant future, it's clear that Poland has risen in the economic ranks. For TVP World, I'm Maciej Wilowski.
There's uproar among Conservative lawmakers over a new health education class being rolled out in schools across Poland. But as Karolina Stolzmann explains, some of those opposing the elective have been caught short on a few basic questions.
A simple question. Gentlemen, what's the difference between a period and ovulation?
Left some Polish lawmakers baffled.
I don't know. I'll be honest, this was never my area of interest, even in school.
Despite lacking the knowledge to answer this very basic question, MP Kosztowniak felt informed enough to campaign for curbing abortion rights in Poland. Together with his fellow panelists, he was asked this question in relation to a new elective class introduced into Polish secondary schools, health education, the purpose of which the Ministry of Education is clear about.
I want every young person entering adulthood to be able to be a conscious member of society.
But some MPs argue the subject poses a threat, despite its clearly stated objectives.
Students will learn about bodily autonomy and how to assertively support it. They will learn to recognize behaviors that overstep their intimate boundaries, whether they come from adults or their peers.
Many conservative MPs and activists have urged parents to pull their children from these health ed classes. The elective also aims to teach students about the importance of physical exercise, sexual and psychological health, nutrition, and limiting screen time.
We return now to our top stories. Polish President Karol Nawrocki's meeting with Donald Trump at the White House and the EU's Mercosur deal. Here to break both down is Michał Wawrzykiewicz, Polish MEP from the European People's Party and Civic Coalition. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you on. Firstly, on President Nawrocki's Washington visit, much speculation there has been over whether or not American troops would be pulled out of Poland. He now confirming that they will not be pulled out of Poland, and in fact, even more could be added. So, is this a win for President Nawrocki?
That's a win for Poland, first of all, because this is in Polish interest. And we heard very clear declaration from President Trump that this is not his intention to withdraw American troops from Poland. And in that respect, the government and the president and the opposition, we all speak the same language. So this is a very good sign for the security of Poland and the security of Europe. I am really happy about that.
So despite the internal fighting over foreign policy and coordinating foreign policy here in Warsaw over the last few days, does this show that President Nawrocki can represent Poland on the world stage?
Well, according to the constitution, Polish constitution, it's quite clear that the government makes the foreign policy and the president should follow the government's policy. And what we can observe within last couple of hours in DC is that it looks like President Nawrocki is following government's policy, foreign policy, because we need to look at the meeting which took place yesterday between U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio and Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, when all of these things which are discussed today between President Nawrocki and President Trump were confirmed. The transatlantic good relationships based on military cooperation, based on the same values, Western values. That was confirmed yesterday, and that was confirmed today. So this is a very good sign for the future partnership and the relationship between the United States and Poland. And this is a good sign for Poland that the government and the president can speak the same language.
So was there perhaps no reason to be worried that President Nawrocki would misrepresent Poland's foreign policy position, as there were concerns over the week that this would happen behind closed doors?
Yeah, because there were some signals that President Nawrocki is going to present his own policy in that respect. First of all, I was very much concerned that the statement, the position of President Trump, especially when it comes to war in Ukraine, will be supported somehow by President Nawrocki. But what we heard from President Nawrocki, what we heard from President Trump today on the level of declarations, of course, we'll see what will happen in future, but on the level of declaration, everything going to the same direction, that we are allies against Russia. We are allies based in the same values code. So there are no worries as for today. when it comes to the coordination of foreign policy between Polish government and Polish president. And I'm really happy about that.
Moving on to the Mercosur deal now, can you spell out why Poland is against this trade accord?
Well, the Polish government is very consecutive and is presenting this statement together with France. Two huge countries in the European Union are presenting the same position, that we are against this trade agreement because of potential negative consequences, especially in the agriculture market in Poland and France. So this position will be presented by Polish government in the nearest future. And if it is not enough, because at this stage we don't have a blocking majority in the European Union Council to stop this agreement, but Polish government will still and consecutively work on building this blocking majority. We need Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to support this blocking minority. If we have this blocking minority, then it will be possible to stop this agreement. This is a very negative from the point of view of Poland or France agreement, because we are afraid of a huge increase of an import of agricultural products from the countries of Mercosur, from the countries of South America. We are also working, and we're pressing European Commission, I mean the Polish government, when it comes to blocking mechanism, to create a blocking mechanism, and we are demanding an enforcement act to this potential agreement to stop some negative consequences that are coming from this trade agreement.
So what exactly needs to happen for Poland to give this the green light? Because some people say, look, the farmers will never be happy.
No, the farmers won't be happy, and that's why Polish government is against this agreement. And we need to remember that this government, Donald Tusk's government, is in a difficult position because for many years, previous government, Law and Justice government, endorsed this Mercosur agreement. We need to remember what happened during the meetings of the European Council between 2016, 2018. We need a WTO Nairobi package from 2017. That was all supported by Law and Justice government. That's why Donald Tusk's government is in a difficult position to block this agreement, but still we are doing our best to not to sign this agreement. But if it won't be possible, if Polish government and the French government won't be able to build this blocking minority, then we will force these blocking mechanism to suspend some of the consequences for the future and to provide as many positive consequences that are coming from this agreement as it is possible. There are some, of course, positive consequences that are coming from this agreement. The example is the import of beef, for example, or import of poultry. That will be reduced. Today, we are counting around 200,000 tons of import from South America to European Union, 200 tons a year, and it will be reduced to 99,000 tons. When it comes to poultry, more or less the same, half of the import will be blocked on the basis of this agreement, and we'll have the tariffs in the amount of 7.5%. So there are some positive consequences, but generally we stand on the position that it is negative agreement for Poland.
So the message is, if Poland can't block it, then it will ensure some kind of amendments within a braking mechanism. Michał Wawrzykiewicz, Polish MEP from the European People's Party and Civic Coalition, thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.